It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Niccolo Machiavelli, they tell you reputation is everything. They tell you to guard it, polish it, protect it at all costs. They say a good name is better than riches. That's a lie. Reputation is a weapon. It's a tool to be wielded, shattered, and reforged as needed. Your reputation isn't some fragile vase to be kept on a shelf, safe from harm. It's a hammer. And sometimes you need to break it to build something stronger. The world teaches you to be liked, to be accepted, to maintain a pristine image. But that's the path to mediocrity. That's the cage built by the opinions of others. True power comes from understanding the game, not playing by its outdated rules. Forget about being liked. Focus on being effective. Your reputation is simply the story people tell themselves about you. And you, the master strategist, are the author of that story. Most people are slaves to their reputations. They're trapped by the expectations of others, terrified of stepping outside the lines. They fear judgment, criticism, and the dreaded label of failure. This fear makes them predictable. It makes them weak. And predictable weakness is easily exploited. The goal isn't to be universally admired. The goal is to be respected, feared, or even hated, as long as that reaction serves your purpose. Manipulating perception is the key. Understanding how people form opinions, spread rumors, and cling to narratives is crucial. You must learn to control the flow of information, to plant seeds of doubt, and to shape the collective understanding of who you are and what you're capable of. They preach authenticity. They tell you to be yourself. But what if yourself is a weakness? What if yourself is holding you back? Authenticity is a luxury you can't afford. You are a work in progress, a constant evolution. You are not obligated to stay the same, to conform to the expectations of your past. Shed the skin of your former self. Embrace the persona that will best serve your current goals. Don't be afraid to shock people, to defy expectations, to shatter the image they have of you. Sometimes the most effective way to gain control is to let your reputation burn. Let the rumors fly, let the criticism sting. As the flames die down, you will emerge stronger, more resilient, and ready to forge a new identity. This isn't about being deceptive for the sake of deception. It's about strategic adaptation. It's about understanding the power of perception and using it to your advantage. Imagine you're a general on the battlefield. Would you reveal your every move, your every weakness to the enemy? Of course not. You would use deception, misdirection, and psychological warfare to gain an edge. Your reputation is just another weapon in your arsenal. Learn to wield it with precision and ruthlessness. The masses crave simple narratives. They want to categorize you, label you, and file you away neatly in their minds. Disrupt their expectations. Contradict their assumptions. Keep them guessing. The more unpredictable you are, the harder you are to control. They want you to be a sheep grazing in the field, content with your lot in life. They want you to believe that your reputation is a precious commodity to be guarded at all costs. But you are not a sheep. You are a wolf in sheep's clothing. You understand that the game is rigged, that the rules are designed to keep you in your place. Break free from the herd. Embrace the power of reputation destruction. Learn to shatter the illusions, to expose the lies, and to forge your own destiny. Your reputation is not your prison. It is your playground. And you, the master manipulator, are about to rewrite the rules of the game. Forget everything you've been told. The path to power lies in understanding the dark art of reputation management. Reputation, in its essence, is a fragile construct, a house of cards built on the shifting sands of public opinion. It is a reflection of perceived value, a social currency that dictates opportunities and limitations. But what happens when this carefully cultivated image becomes a liability? When it boxes you in, restricts your freedom, and prevents you from achieving your true potential. That is when reputation destruction becomes a necessary tool, a surgical instrument for liberating yourself from the constraints of expectation. The human mind is wired to seek patterns, to categorize and label everything it encounters. This is how we make sense of the world, how we reduce complexity and navigate the chaos of daily life. But this tendency towards simplification can also be exploited. By strategically manipulating the information available to others, you can control their perception of you, shaping their opinions and influencing their behavior. This is not about lying or fabricating falsehoods. It's about selectively revealing certain aspects of your personality while concealing others. It's about creating a calculated ambiguity that keeps people guessing, that forces them to question their assumptions. Think of it as a form of psychological judo. Instead of directly confronting your opponents, you use their own momentum against them. You exploit their biases, their prejudices, and their preconceived notions to create an opening for yourself. The key is to understand the psychology of the crowd, to know what triggers their emotions and what influences their decisions. What are their values? What are their fears? What are their hopes? Once you understand these underlying motivations, you can tailor your message to resonate with them, to subtly nudge them in the direction you desire. Reputation destruction is not always about tearing down an existing image. Sometimes, it's about creating a new one, a more authentic representation of who you truly are. Perhaps you've been playing a role, conforming to the expectations of others, suppressing your true self in order to fit in. Now it's time to shed that skin, to break free from the mold and embrace your individuality. This can be a painful process, a shedding of old identities and a confrontation with uncomfortable truths. But it is also a liberating one, a journey towards self-discovery and personal empowerment. The most effective strategies for reputation destruction are often subtle, indirect, and almost imperceptible. They rely on the power of suggestion, on the art of planting seeds of doubt in the minds of others. Rumors, whispers, and innuendo can be far more damaging than outright accusations. The human mind is naturally suspicious, always searching for hidden motives and underlying agendas. By subtly feeding these suspicions, you can erode trust, undermine credibility, and create a climate of uncertainty. Remember, perception is reality. It doesn't matter what is actually true. What matters is what people believe to be true. And by controlling the narrative, by shaping the information that reaches the public, you can influence their beliefs and ultimately control their actions. This is the essence of psychological warfare, the art of manipulating the human mind to achieve a strategic advantage. But be warned, this is a dangerous game. Playing with fire can get you burned. If you are not careful, you can easily damage your own reputation in the process of trying to destroy someone else's. That is why it is crucial to approach this with a cold, calculating, and strategic mindset. Consider the long-term consequences of your actions. What are the potential risks and rewards? What are the alternative strategies available to you? And most importantly, are you prepared to accept the responsibility for the consequences of your choices? Reputation destruction is not a game for the faint of heart. It requires courage, discipline, and a willingness to confront the darker aspects of human nature. But for those who are willing to master this art, the rewards can be immense. The ability to control your own reputation to shape the perception of others is a powerful tool that can open doors, create opportunities, and ultimately allow you to achieve your full potential. The average person clings to their reputation as if it's the only thing standing between them and oblivion. They fear judgment, ridicule, and social ostracization. This fear is their weakness. Exploit it. Use it to your advantage. Understand that the masses are easily manipulated, that they are sheep blindly following the herd. You are not one of them. You are a shepherd guiding the flock in the direction you desire. You are a master of perception, a weaver of illusions, a manipulator of reality. Your reputation is not a constraint. It is a canvas. And you, the artist, are about to create your masterpiece. The psychology behind reputation management, whether it's building it up or tearing it down, hinges on understanding cognitive biases. These are mental shortcuts our brains use to simplify information processing, but they can lead to irrational judgments and decisions. One key bias is the halo effect, where a positive impression in one area influences our perception of someone in other areas. Conversely, the horns effect does the opposite. A single negative trait can overshadow all positive ones. Understanding these biases allows you to strategically manage the information you present to others, emphasizing positive attributes while downplaying negative ones. Another crucial bias is confirmation bias, our tendency to seek out and interpret information that confirms our existing beliefs. This means that once someone has formed an opinion about you, they will actively look for evidence to support that opinion, even if it's based on flimsy or misleading information. This is why first impressions are so important and why it can be difficult to change someone's mind once they've made it up. To effectively destroy a reputation, you must exploit these biases. Seed doubt by subtly introducing information that contradicts the existing positive narrative. Use the availability heuristic, which leads people to overestimate the importance of information that is easily accessible in their minds. Plant rumors or spread negative stories that are likely to be repeated and remembered. The more often someone hears a negative story, the more likely they are to believe it, even if they have no evidence to support it. Furthermore, tap into the power of social proof. People are more likely to believe something if they see that others believe it too. This is why online reviews, social media endorsements, and public endorsements can be so influential. By strategically manipulating these social signals, you can create a bandwagon effect where people start to pile on and reinforce the negative narrative. However, it is vital to remember that truth, or rather the perception of it, is a fluid concept. The reality is often far less important than the story people tell themselves about it. You are not simply destroying a reputation. You are constructing a new narrative, a compelling story that resonates with their emotions and confirms their existing biases. The effectiveness of any reputation destruction strategy depends heavily on the target audience. Different groups have different values, beliefs, and expectations. What works on one group may backfire on another. For example, a strategy that relies on appealing to people's sense of outrage may be effective with a highly emotional audience, but may be seen as crass and manipulative by a more rational audience. Similarly, a strategy that relies on humor may be effective with a younger audience, but may be seen as disrespectful by an older audience. To be successful, you must carefully analyze your target audience and tailor your message accordingly. What are their hot buttons? What are their vulnerabilities? What are their values? Once you understand these underlying dynamics, you can craft a message that is designed to resonate with them on a deep, emotional level. Ultimately, reputation destruction is a game of psychological warfare. It is about understanding the human mind and using that knowledge to manipulate the perceptions of others. It is a dark art, but it is also a powerful tool for those who are willing to master it. Remember, the goal is not simply to destroy someone's reputation. The goal is to achieve a specific objective, whether it is gaining a competitive advantage, silencing a critic, or simply asserting your dominance. Reputation destruction should always be a means to an end, not an end in itself, and it should always be approached with a cold, calculating, and strategic mindset. Furthermore, always consider the potential blowback. Every action has a reaction, and attempts to destroy someone's reputation can easily backfire. Be prepared for the consequences of your actions and have a plan in place to mitigate any potential damage. The best strategies are often the most subtle and indirect. They rely on the power of suggestion, on the art of planting seeds of doubt in the minds of others. Avoid making direct accusations or engaging in open conflict. Instead, focus on subtly undermining the target's credibility and eroding their support. Remember, the key is to control the narrative, to shape the information that reaches the public, and to influence their perceptions. Consider the case of a promising tech startup CEO, a young visionary whose innovative ideas were disrupting the market. He was seen as the future, a brilliant mind with the potential to revolutionize his industry. But beneath the surface, a rival company, threatened by his success, began to orchestrate a calculated campaign to destroy his reputation. They didn't launch a direct attack. They didn't file lawsuits or make public accusations. Instead, they started subtly planting seeds of doubt within the industry and among his investors. They leaked carefully curated snippets of information, suggesting that his business practices were unethical, that his financial projections were unrealistic, and that he was mismanaging company resources. These leaks were strategically timed and targeted, designed to create maximum impact with minimal exposure. They knew that even a hint of scandal could be enough to damage his credibility and undermine his support. The rival company understood the power of perception and the importance of controlling the narrative. They focused on exploiting pre-existing anxieties and biases within the industry. They knew that investors were inherently risk-averse and that any suggestion of instability or mismanagement could trigger a panic. They also knew that the media was always hungry for a good story and that a carefully crafted narrative could quickly spiral out of control. The rival company used a network of anonymous sources and online platforms to spread their message. They created fake social media accounts and online forums to amplify their voice and create the illusion of widespread concern. They also cultivated relationships with journalists and industry influencers, subtly feeding them negative information about the CEO and his company. They understood that the key was to create a perception of legitimacy and to make it seem as though the negative information was coming from independent sources. The campaign was slow and methodical, designed to gradually erode the CEO's reputation over time. They knew that a sudden, aggressive attack would be too obvious and would likely backfire. Instead, they focused on creating a drip feed of negative information, slowly poisoning the well and undermining his credibility. As the campaign progressed, the CEO began to notice the subtle shifts in perception. Investors became more hesitant, employees became more anxious, and the media became more critical. He tried to defend himself, but he found himself constantly on the defensive, struggling to counter the relentless stream of negative information. He realized that he was fighting an invisible enemy, an enemy that was operating in the shadows and using his own strengths against him. The constant pressure and scrutiny began to take a toll on his mental health. He became paranoid and distrustful, questioning the motives of everyone around him. He lost sleep, his appetite waned, and he became increasingly isolated. The rival company had successfully created a climate of fear and uncertainty, effectively crippling his ability to lead and innovate. Eventually, the investors lost faith in the CEO and forced him to resign. The company's stock price plummeted, and his reputation was in tatters. He went from being a rising star to a pariah, ostracized by the industry and shunned by his peers. The rival company had achieved its objective. They had successfully destroyed his reputation and eliminated a major threat to their business. The entire operation demonstrated the ruthlessness and the strategic thinking that goes into reputation destruction systems. It's about understanding vulnerabilities, exploiting weaknesses, and manipulating perceptions to achieve a desired outcome. It's a game of psychological warfare, where the battle is fought not on the battlefield, but in the minds of others. And in this battle, perception is reality. The downfall of that CEO highlights a critical vulnerability: the inability to manage perception under extreme pressure. When attacked, most people instinctively react defensively, trying to disprove accusations and repair the damage. This reactive posture is precisely what the attacker wants. It forces you into a perpetual state of explanation, constantly justifying your actions and validating the narrative being constructed against you. Think of it like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. This is the trap. The weak fall into it because they prioritize immediate damage control over strategic long-term thinking. They believe that by addressing each accusation individually, they can somehow clear their name and restore their reputation. But this is a losing battle. The attacker controls the narrative, setting the terms of engagement and dictating the agenda. You are simply reacting to their moves, constantly playing catch-up and never gaining the initiative. Each denial, each explanation, only serves to amplify the original accusation, keeping it in the public consciousness and reinforcing the negative perception. The constant need to defend oneself also projects an image of weakness and insecurity. It suggests that you are guilty of something, or at least that you have something to hide. A truly strong and confident individual would not be so easily rattled by criticism. They would remain calm and composed, refusing to be drawn into the mudslinging. The reactive approach also consumes valuable time and energy. It diverts your attention from your primary goals and prevents you from focusing on what truly matters. Instead of building and innovating, you are forced to spend your days fighting fires and defending your reputation. This can lead to burnout and exhaustion, further weakening your resolve and making you even more vulnerable to attack. The psychological toll of constant scrutiny and criticism can be devastating. It erodes your self-confidence, undermines your sense of purpose, and can even lead to depression and anxiety. This is precisely what the attacker is trying to achieve. By breaking you down mentally and emotionally, they can effectively neutralize you as a threat. So, the first step in avoiding this trap is to recognize that you cannot win by playing defense. You must shift your focus from reacting to attacks to proactively shaping your own narrative. This requires a fundamental change in mindset. Instead of viewing reputation management as a damage control exercise, you must see it as a strategic opportunity to define yourself on your own terms. It means understanding the power of perception and using it to your advantage. It means anticipating potential threats and proactively building a reputation that is resistant to attack. It means controlling the narrative and refusing to be defined by your enemies. This is not about lying or deceiving. It's about presenting the truth in a way that is favorable to you. It's about highlighting your strengths, downplaying your weaknesses, and proactively shaping the public's perception of who you are and what you stand for. This requires a long-term perspective and a strategic approach. It's not about winning every battle, but about winning the war. It's about building a reputation that can withstand the inevitable storms and emerge stronger on the other side. And it all starts with recognizing the trap of reactive defense and committing to a proactive strategy of self-definition. The next step is understanding the core principle of psychological warfare: control the information. Your reputation is built on information, on what people know or believe about you. The attacker aims to pollute that information stream, injecting poison into the public's perception. Countering this requires not just cleaning up the mess, but actively managing the entire flow of information. Think of it as building a dam, not just patching leaks. This means identifying all potential sources of information about you: your social media, your professional affiliations, your public statements, even your personal relationships. Each of these is a potential point of attack, a place where the enemy can inject their narrative. You need to audit these sources, identify vulnerabilities, and actively fortify them. This isn't about censorship or hiding the truth. It's about controlling the presentation of the truth, ensuring that your story is told accurately and completely. It's about proactively shaping the narrative, rather than passively reacting to the narratives of others. Consider the power of preemptive framing. Before a potential attack even materializes, you can lay the groundwork for your defense by establishing your core values, your principles, and your track record. This creates a context within which any future accusations will be viewed. If you've consistently demonstrated integrity and honesty, any attempts to paint you as dishonest will face an uphill battle. This requires a sustained effort, a consistent commitment to living your values in public. It's not enough to simply say you're honest. You must demonstrate it through your actions. Think of it as building a reservoir of goodwill, a reserve of public trust that can withstand the impact of a negative campaign. This also involves actively engaging with your audience, building relationships, and fostering a sense of community. The more people who know you, who understand your values, and who trust your judgment, the more difficult it will be for an attacker to undermine your reputation. These relationships act as a buffer, a human shield against the poison arrows of your enemies. But building these relationships requires authenticity. People can spot a fake, a charlatan, a manipulator from a mile away. You must genuinely care about your audience, listen to their concerns, and address their needs. This isn't about manipulating them. It's about building genuine connections based on mutual respect and trust. Furthermore, understand the power of counterintelligence. Knowing your enemy, understanding their motivations, and anticipating their next move is crucial. This means monitoring their activities, identifying their allies, and understanding their strategies. It's like playing a game of chess. You need to anticipate your opponent's moves and develop counter-strategies. This requires careful observation, strategic thinking, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes. It also means understanding the psychology of your attacker. What are their vulnerabilities? What are their weaknesses? What are they afraid of? By understanding their psychology, you can anticipate their behavior and exploit their weaknesses. This isn't about being malicious. It's about protecting yourself. It's about understanding the game and playing it to win. And remember, silence is often the best weapon. Responding to every accusation, engaging in every argument can actually amplify the attacker's message. Sometimes, the best strategy is to simply ignore the attack, to refuse to give it oxygen. This requires discipline, self-control, and the ability to resist the urge to defend yourself. It's like standing firm in the face of a storm, refusing to be blown away by the wind. But silence isn't always the answer. Sometimes, a swift and decisive response is necessary to crush the attack before it gains momentum. The key is to choose your battles wisely, to only engage when it's strategically advantageous. This requires careful judgment, a deep understanding of the situation, and the ability to assess the potential consequences of your actions. Consider the power of redirection. Instead of directly confronting the attack, you can redirect the attention of the public to your strengths, your accomplishments, and your values. This is like a magician misdirecting the audience's attention, focusing their gaze on something else entirely. You can highlight your achievements, showcase your positive impact on the community, or emphasize your core values. This shifts the focus from the negative accusations to your positive attributes, effectively neutralizing the attack. This requires creativity, strategic thinking, and a willingness to take risks. It's about finding a way to turn the negative into a positive, to transform the attack into an opportunity. Finally, never underestimate the power of resilience. Even the most well-crafted reputation can be damaged by a sustained attack. The key is to not be discouraged, to not give up, to not let the enemy win. This requires mental fortitude, self-belief, and the ability to learn from your mistakes. It's like a boxer getting knocked down but getting back up, refusing to be defeated. You must learn from the experience, adapt your strategies, and come back stronger than before. This is the true test of character, the ability to persevere in the face of adversity. And remember, your reputation is not who you are. It's simply what others think of you. Your true value lies in your character, your integrity, and your commitment to your values. Hold on to these and you will weather any storm. Throughout history, empires have faced similar challenges to their reputations, often on a grander scale. Think of the Roman Empire, constantly battling not only external enemies, but also internal dissent and whispers of corruption. Their leaders understood the importance of controlling the narrative, shaping public opinion through propaganda, public works projects, and even gladiatorial games designed to distract from underlying issues. They built monuments to project strength and invincibility, attempting to cement their legacy in the minds of both their citizens and their rivals. This wasn't just about vanity. It was about maintaining power, deterring rebellion, and ensuring the continuation of their rule. When faced with accusations of tyranny or incompetence, emperors would often launch military campaigns, shifting the focus from domestic problems to foreign victories. A successful war could bolster their image, portraying them as strong leaders defending the empire against external threats. This is redirection on a massive scale, using conflict to manipulate perception and solidify control. Consider also the art of psychological warfare employed throughout military history. Beyond the battlefield, Armies have always sought to demoralize their enemies by attacking their reputation, spreading rumors, and undermining their morale. Think of leaflets dropped behind enemy lines during wartime, designed to sow discord and distrust among soldiers. These tactics are not just about physical combat. They are about manipulating the minds of the enemy, weakening their resolve, and ultimately breaking their will to fight. The goal is to create a sense of hopelessness, to make the enemy question their leaders, their cause, and their own abilities. This is reputation destruction as a tool of war, a way to achieve victory without necessarily firing a shot. Even the act of parading captured enemy soldiers through the streets served as a public display, intended to damage the enemy's image and project an aura of invincibility for the victors. The strategies used by empires and armies to manage and manipulate their reputations offer valuable lessons for individuals and organizations facing similar challenges. The core principle remains the same. Controlling the narrative is essential for maintaining power and influence. When faced with attacks on your reputation, consider the tactics employed by historical figures and institutions. How did they deflect blame, redirect attention, and manage public perception? What can you learn from their successes and failures? Remember, reputation is a valuable asset, and it must be actively defended and cultivated. Just as an empire invests in its infrastructure and military, you must invest in your own reputation, building a strong foundation of integrity, competence, and positive relationships. And when faced with adversity, draw inspiration from the resilience of those who have come before you, those who have weathered storms and emerged stronger on the other side. The key difference between building and destroying reputation is that building requires slow, steady cultivation while destruction can occur rapidly, like a dam collapsing. However, even rapid damage can be mitigated by preparedness. A well-established reputation, built on a foundation of trust and credibility, is more resilient to attacks. It's like a fortress built on solid ground, capable of withstanding even the most powerful assaults. Therefore, the best defense against reputation destruction is to proactively build a strong and positive image. This involves consistently demonstrating integrity, delivering on your promises, and treating others with respect. It also means actively communicating your values and accomplishments, shaping the narrative around yourself before others have the chance to do so. Furthermore, understanding the psychology of reputation destruction is crucial. Attackers often exploit existing vulnerabilities, preying on insecurities and fears. They may use misinformation, exaggeration, or outright lies to damage your image. Therefore, it's important to be aware of your weaknesses and to take steps to address them. This may involve seeking feedback from trusted sources, acknowledging your mistakes, and taking responsibility for your actions. By addressing your vulnerabilities, you can make yourself less susceptible to attack and better equipped to defend yourself when necessary. The concept of psychological judo becomes relevant here. Instead of directly opposing the force of the attack, you use its momentum against the attacker. For example, if someone accuses you of being overly ambitious, you might acknowledge your ambition but frame it as a positive trait, highlighting how it drives you to achieve great things and contribute to the success of your team. By reframing the accusation, you neutralize its negative impact and even turn it into a positive attribute. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, the ability to anticipate your opponent's moves, and the skill to use their own words against them. It's about turning their weapon into your own, using their attack to strengthen your position. Finally, consider the long-term consequences of reputation destruction. Even if you successfully defend yourself against an attack, the damage may linger. People may still harbor doubts or suspicions, even if they cannot articulate them. Therefore, it's important to focus on rebuilding trust and restoring confidence in your image. This requires patience, persistence, and a commitment to demonstrating your integrity over time. It's about proving to people that you are worthy of their trust, that you have learned from your mistakes, and that you are committed to upholding your values. This is a long-term process, but it is essential for preserving your reputation and maintaining your influence. Remember that people are more likely to forgive and forget if they see genuine remorse, a sincere effort to make amends, and a consistent commitment to ethical behavior. In conclusion, protecting your reputation requires a multifaceted approach, drawing on lessons from history, psychology, and strategy. It's about building a strong foundation of integrity, controlling the narrative, understanding your vulnerabilities, and using psychological tactics to defend yourself against attack. And even when damage occurs, it's about having the resilience to recover, rebuild trust, and emerge stronger than before. Your reputation is a reflection of your character, and it is worth fighting for. The psychology of reputation destruction is deeply rooted in our primal need for social acceptance and belonging. From the earliest human societies, reputation has been a currency, determining our access to resources, mates, and protection. A damaged reputation can trigger a cascade of negative consequences, isolating us from our community and threatening our survival. This inherent vulnerability makes us highly susceptible to reputation attacks, as they strike at the core of our social identity and sense of self-worth. Understanding this fundamental human need is crucial for both launching and defending against reputation attacks. It allows you to anticipate the emotional impact of your actions and to craft your message in a way that resonates with the target audience's fears and desires. The power of reputation manipulation lies in its ability to exploit cognitive biases, those mental shortcuts that our brains use to process information quickly. One such bias is the halo effect, where our overall impression of a person influences how we feel and think about their specific characteristics. If someone has a strong positive reputation, people are more likely to overlook their flaws and attribute positive qualities to them, even if there is no evidence to support this. Conversely, if someone has a negative reputation, people are more likely to focus on their shortcomings and interpret their actions in a negative light. This bias can be leveraged to amplify the impact of reputation attacks, as even minor indiscretions can be blown out of proportion and used to reinforce a negative narrative. Another relevant cognitive bias is confirmation bias, which is our tendency to seek out and interpret information that confirms our existing beliefs. Once a negative narrative has been established about someone, people are more likely to pay attention to information that supports that narrative and to dismiss or downplay information that contradicts it. This can create a self-reinforcing cycle, where the negative reputation becomes increasingly entrenched, regardless of the actual truth. To counter this bias, it's essential to proactively address any negative information and to provide evidence that challenges the prevailing narrative. This requires a strategic communication plan that targets the specific sources of misinformation and presents a compelling alternative viewpoint. The effectiveness of reputation destruction tactics also depends on understanding the psychology of persuasion. One key principle is the importance of credibility. People are more likely to be persuaded by someone they perceive as trustworthy and knowledgeable. Therefore, it's essential to establish your own credibility before launching a reputation attack. This can be achieved by demonstrating expertise in the relevant field, by building a track record of honesty and integrity, and by aligning yourself with respected figures or organizations. Conversely, it's important to undermine the credibility of your target by highlighting their flaws, inconsistencies, or biases. This can be done through careful research, strategic questioning, and the selective release of damaging information. Furthermore, the emotional content of your message plays a critical role in its persuasiveness. People are more likely to be influenced by arguments that evoke strong emotions, such as fear, anger, or disgust. Therefore, reputation attacks often rely on emotionally charged language and imagery to create a visceral reaction in the target audience. This can involve exaggerating the severity of the target's actions, using inflammatory labels, or associating them with negative symbols or stereotypes. However, it's important to strike a balance between emotional appeal and factual accuracy. If your message is perceived as overly manipulative or dishonest, it can backfire and damage your own reputation. The spread of reputation attacks is also influenced by social contagion, the tendency for behaviors and emotions to spread through social networks. When people see others expressing negative opinions about someone, they are more likely to adopt those opinions themselves, even if they have no direct experience with the target. This can create a snowball effect, where the negative reputation spreads rapidly through the community, amplified by social media and other communication channels. To counteract social contagion, it's important to proactively engage with your audience and to counter the negative narrative with positive messages and testimonials. This requires building a strong online presence, monitoring social media conversations, and responding quickly to any false or misleading information. Another psychological factor to consider is the role of envy and resentment in fueling reputation attacks. People who are envious of your success or resentful of your power may be more likely to spread negative rumors or to engage in sabotage. This is particularly true if they feel that you have achieved your position unfairly or that you are not deserving of your success. To mitigate the risk of envy-driven attacks, it's important to be humble and generous in your dealings with others. Acknowledge the contributions of your colleagues, share your success with others, and avoid flaunting your wealth or power. This can help to diffuse resentment and to build a more positive and supportive environment. Finally, the psychological impact of reputation destruction can be devastating for the target. Even if the accusations are false or exaggerated, the emotional toll of being publicly shamed and ostracized can be immense. This can lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, and social isolation, as well as damage to their self-esteem and sense of identity. In some cases, the psychological trauma can be so severe that it leads to suicidal thoughts or actions. Therefore, it's important to be mindful of the potential harm that reputation attacks can inflict and to consider the ethical implications of your actions. While defending your own reputation is important, it should not come at the expense of someone else's well-being. The strategic deployment of psychological tactics in reputation destruction systems requires a deep understanding of human nature and social dynamics. It's about exploiting our vulnerabilities, manipulating our biases, and leveraging our emotions to achieve a desired outcome. However, it's also about recognizing the potential consequences of your actions and acting with responsibility and integrity. Ultimately, the most effective way to protect your reputation is to build a strong foundation of trust and respect, to conduct yourself with honesty and fairness, and to treat others with empathy and compassion. This will not only deter potential attackers, but also ensure that you have a strong network of allies who will stand by you in times of crisis. Reputation destruction isn't merely about leveling accusations. It's about crafting narratives that resonate with the pre-existing fears and prejudices of the target audience. It involves understanding the subtle nuances of social perception and knowing which buttons to push to trigger the desired emotional response. The most effective campaigns are not those that rely on outright lies, but rather those that twist the truth, amplify existing flaws, and create a compelling story that confirms people's worst suspicions. This requires meticulous research, careful planning, and a deep understanding of the target's vulnerabilities. Consider it psychological surgery, precise incisions that strategically dismantle the subject's public persona. The objective is to isolate, demoralize, and ultimately neutralize the threat they pose. Think of it as constructing a cage brick by painful brick, using the very opinions of the society the target relies on. The application of these systems extends far beyond the realm of personal vendettas. Businesses use them to undermine competitors, political campaigns weaponize them to discredit opponents, and even nations employ them as instruments of foreign policy. Understanding the mechanics of reputation destruction is crucial not only for defending yourself against attack, but also for recognizing when you are being manipulated by these tactics. Develop a keen awareness of the information you consume, question the motives of those who disseminate it, and cultivate a healthy skepticism towards anything that seems too good or too bad to be true. Filter the narrative, don't let it poison you. Recognize that a damaged reputation can be rebuilt, but the process is arduous and requires unwavering commitment. It demands transparency, accountability, and a willingness to confront the underlying issues that led to the initial crisis. It also requires resilience, the ability to withstand criticism, and the emotional fortitude to persevere in the face of adversity. A single misstep can undo months of progress, so be prepared for a long and difficult journey. More than that, you must cultivate a steel-like self-awareness so that you know your weaknesses, your strengths, and can predict your opponent's moves before they are made. You must become a fortress of the mind. Ultimately, the best defense against reputation destruction is to live a life of integrity and authenticity. Build a strong foundation of trust and respect. Treat others with kindness and compassion, and always strive to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. This will not only protect you from attack, but also ensure that you have a clear conscience and a strong sense of self-worth. Your actions speak louder than words, and a solid reputation is a far more powerful shield than any carefully crafted defense. Consider the power you now wield. The knowledge of how easily a reputation can be fractured, manipulated, destroyed. Understand the weight of this